Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. Have you been eating smaller portions, exercising more often, choosing healthier meals, and cutting back on treats you once enjoyed, yet that stubborn belly fat refuses to disappear? Maybe you've even noticed that despite all your efforts, it seems to be getting harder to lose as the years go by. If that sounds familiar, here's something important to understand. This is not simply a matter of self discipline. What you're dealing with is rooted in biology. And the good news is that there are ways to work with your body's biology instead of fighting against it. Welcome to Wellness Science Hub, where we explore science backed strategies to help you stay strong, healthy, and mentally sharp as you move through your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Before we get into today's solutions, I want to clarify exactly what kind of fat we're discussing. This isn't the fat just beneath the skin that you can grab with your fingers. We're talking about visceral fat, the deeper fat that surrounds vital organs such as the liver, kidneys, intestines, and even the heart. As we get older, especially after age 60, the body becomes surprisingly effective at storing this type of fat. But there's an encouraging fact many people don't realize. Visceral fat is actually one of the most responsive forms of fat in the body. Because it's highly active metabolically, it can react more quickly to the right nutritional signals than other types of fat. Even if you're 65, 75, or older, your body can still be guided toward burning it. Today I'll share 8 simple daily additions, just 1 tablespoon of each, that can help send a powerful message to your metabolism. Start using stored visceral fat for energy. Make sure you stay until the final item because number 8 is something many healthcare professionals rarely discuss, and it may turn out to be one of the most effective tools on this list. Before we go any further, let's take a moment to understand why visceral fat is such a concern. When you understand what's happening inside your body, following the solution becomes much easier. Visceral fat is far from inactive. It doesn't simply sit around taking up space, it's living tissue that actively influences your health. It releases inflammatory compounds known as cytokines, interferes with normal hormone signaling, and contributes to a constant low-level state of inflammation throughout the body. Researchers often refer to this process as metabolic inflammation or metaflammation. This chronic inflammatory state has been strongly linked to conditions such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, memory decline, and even several forms of cancer. So why does visceral fat become more common as we age? One major reason involves hormonal changes. For women, estrogen levels drop significantly during and after menopause. Estrogen normally encourages fat storage in areas such as the hips and thighs, helping keep excess fat away from internal organs. As estrogen decreases, fat distribution shifts toward the abdominal region. For men, testosterone levels gradually decline with age. Lower testosterone often means reduced muscle mass and a slower metabolic rate, both of which can make fat accumulation easier. Although the hormonal changes differ, the outcome is often the same: more fat around the midsection. The second factor involves cortisol, often called the stress hormone. As we get older, many people become more sensitive to cortisol's effects. One of cortisol's primary jobs is encouraging the body to store energy, particularly in the abdominal area. Poor sleep, ongoing discomfort, social isolation, and chronic stress, all common challenges later in life, can keep cortisol levels elevated. The third factor is the gut microbiome. Inside your digestive system lives a vast community of beneficial bacteria that help regulate digestion, metabolism, and fat storage. Unfortunately, these helpful microbes often become less diverse and less abundant with age. When the microbiome loses balance, the body becomes more likely to store excess calories as fat, especially visceral fat. So we're really facing a challenge on 3 fronts: hormonal shifts, increased cortisol activity, and changes in gut health. The encouraging part is that each of the foods we're discussing today can help address one or more of these underlying causes. Let's start with number 1. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the most extensively researched foods in nutrition science. And yes, I know what some people are thinking: how can adding fat help me lose fat? It's a fair question, but the science tells a different story. High-quality extra virgin olive oil contains powerful plant compounds called polyphenols. One of the most important is oleocanthal, a natural substance with impressive anti-inflammatory properties. Researchers have found that oleocanthal influences some of the same inflammatory pathways targeted by ibuprofen. In other words, it helps reduce inflammation at a biological level. Why is that important? Because visceral fat and inflammation fuel each other. The more visceral fat you carry, the more inflammatory chemicals your body produces. Increased inflammation then encourages even more fat storage, creating a difficult cycle to break. By helping reduce inflammation, extra virgin olive oil may help interrupt that cycle. Its benefits don't stop there. Studies examining Mediterranean style eating patterns, which feature generous amounts of extra virgin olive oil, have consistently shown improvements in abdominal fat levels compared with traditional low fat diets. Olive oil has also been shown to support better insulin sensitivity, which becomes increasingly important with age as insulin resistance becomes more common. The amount needed is surprisingly small. Just 1 tablespoon per day can make a meaningful difference. Drizzle it over vegetables, add it to salads, or enjoy it with whole grain bread. For maximum benefit, avoid exposing it to very high cooking temperatures since excessive heat can reduce some of its valuable polyphenols. Whenever possible, choose olive oil packaged in dark glass bottles and look for a harvest date. Fresher olive oil generally contains higher concentrations of beneficial compounds. Now let's move on to number 2, apple cider vinegar. This is a food that's received a lot of attention online, but let's focus on what the research actually shows. Apple cider vinegar contains acetic acid, and this naturally occurring compound appears to influence how the body handles fat storage. One well-known clinical study conducted in Japan followed 175 adults with obesity over a period of 12 weeks. Participants were divided into groups that consumed either 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar daily, 2 tablespoons daily, or a placebo. By the end of the study, the vinegar groups experienced reductions in visceral fat, waist measurements, body weight, and triglyceride levels, while the placebo group showed virtually no improvement. What makes these findings notable is that this was a randomized, controlled clinical trial, the type of study considered among the strongest forms of scientific evidence. So how might apple cider vinegar produce these effects? Research suggests that acetic acid may activate an important metabolic enzyme known as AMPK. You can think of AMPK as your body's internal metabolic control center. When this enzyme is switched on, it encourages your body to move away from storing fat and toward using it for energy. It also slows the conversion of carbohydrates into glucose, helping reduce the blood sugar spikes that trigger insulin release and encourage belly fat accumulation. For adults over 60, especially those keeping an eye on blood sugar levels, this can be extremely important. To use it properly, mix 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into at least 8 ounces of water and drink it about 15 to 20 minutes before your largest meal. There is one important warning here. Never consume apple cider vinegar by itself. Undiluted vinegar can wear away tooth enamel and irritate the delicate tissues of the throat and esophagus. If you struggle with acid reflux, delayed stomach emptying, stomach ulcers, or similar digestive conditions, talk with your healthcare provider before adding it to your routine. And if you're taking medications for diabetes, monitor your blood sugar carefully since vinegar may enhance their effects. Let's move on to number 3, a food that often creates discussion even within the medical community: coconut oil. The reason opinions vary is that many people don't understand the unique way coconut oil is processed by the body. Coconut oil contains medium-chain triglycerides, commonly called MCTs. These fats behave very differently from the longer chain fats found in foods like butter, beef, and many vegetable oils. When you consume most dietary fats, your digestive system must break them down through a lengthy process before transporting them through the lymphatic system and eventually to the liver. Along the way, some of those fats may be stored in body tissues. MCTs take a shortcut. They move directly from the digestive tract to the liver, where they are rapidly converted into energy or ketones. Ketones can immediately fuel the brain and muscles, providing a quick source of energy. What does that mean in practical terms? Your body is more likely to burn these fats than store them, and when the body shifts into a fat-burning state, visceral fat often becomes one of the preferred energy sources. One study conducted in Brazil found that women who consumed coconut oil daily experienced reductions in waist size, while participants consuming soybean oil did not see the same effect despite similar calorie intake. The easiest way to use coconut oil is to add 1 tablespoon to your morning coffee. Many people find that it helps them stay satisfied and energized throughout the morning. It can also be used for light cooking because it tolerates moderate heat better than extra virgin olive oil. However, it's important to remember that coconut oil is still high in saturated fat. If you have elevated LDL cholesterol or a history of heart disease, discuss it with your cardiologist before making it a daily habit. Now let's talk about number 4. One of my favorite recommendations for supporting metabolic health: ground flaxseed. What makes flaxseed so impressive is that it helps address visceral fat through multiple biological pathways at the same time. The first pathway involves cortisol. Flaxseed is one of the richest sources of plant compounds known as lignans. These natural compounds appear to reduce the activity of an enzyme called 11-beta-HSD1, which helps activate cortisol within fat tissue. Earlier, we discussed how cortisol encourages belly fat storage. Flaxseed may help reduce that effect directly at the cellular level. This is especially valuable for adults dealing with stress, poor sleep, chronic discomfort, or other factors that keep cortisol levels elevated. The second pathway involves blood sugar regulation and appetite control. Flaxseed contains large amounts of soluble fiber, particularly a type known as mucilage. Once it reaches the digestive tract, it absorbs water and forms a gel-like substance. This slows the absorption of glucose into the bloodstream, helping prevent sharp blood sugar rises after meals. As a result, insulin levels remain more stable, reducing signals that promote abdominal fat storage. Another benefit is increased satiety. People often feel full longer after consuming flaxseed, which may help reduce unnecessary snacking. In addition, flaxseed provides ALA omega-3 fatty acids, which help calm inflammation throughout the body and support healthier metabolism. For best results, always choose ground flaxseed. Whole flax seeds often pass through the digestive system largely intact, limiting the benefits. A single tablespoon can be sprinkled onto oatmeal, mixed into yogurt, or blended into a smoothie. Because its natural oils can spoil over time, store ground flaxseed in a sealed container in the refrigerator. Number 5 is the spice I would place at the very top of the list for healthy aging: turmeric. Turmeric contains a powerful compound called curcumin, one of the most extensively researched natural anti-inflammatory substances available. Scientists have published thousands of studies investigating its effects, and some of the findings related to fat metabolism are particularly impressive. Curcumin appears to interfere with the process that transforms immature cells into fat cells. In simple terms, it may slow the body's ability to create new fat-storing cells. Even more interesting, research suggests it may have a stronger effect on visceral fat than on the fat located directly beneath the skin. Curcumin also helps suppress NF-kappa B, a key regulator of inflammation in the body. When this inflammatory pathway becomes less active, many of the signals that encourage visceral fat accumulation are reduced as well. There is one challenge, however. Curcumin is not absorbed efficiently on its own. Fortunately, there is a simple solution. Black pepper contains a natural compound called piperine, which can dramatically increase curcumin absorption. That's why combining the two is so important. One enjoyable option is to make golden milk. Warm a cup of unsweetened almond milk or oat milk, stir in 1 tablespoon of turmeric, add a pinch of black pepper, a little fresh ginger, and a touch of raw honey. Enjoying it in the evening can be both soothing and beneficial. Turmeric can also be added to eggs, soups, stews, and roasted vegetables. Now let's move to number 6, and this one often surprises people. Whenever I mention honey, someone inevitably asks, "Isn't honey just another form of sugar?" The answer is more nuanced than most people expect. Raw, unprocessed honey is quite different from refined white sugar. Table sugar is quickly broken down and absorbed, leading to rapid increases in blood glucose and insulin. Those insulin surges encourage the body to store excess energy as fat, especially around the abdomen. Raw honey generally produces a gentler blood sugar response because it is metabolized more gradually. But what makes it particularly interesting is something many people never hear about. Raw honey contains prebiotic compounds known as oligosaccharides. These substances are not digested by your body. Instead, they serve as food for beneficial gut bacteria. As we've already discussed, gut health plays a major role in how the body stores and distributes fat.